Hello and welcome everybody out there in Webland. Welcome to Green School Bali. My name's Andy Ashton and I'm here to host a very special webinar today. You can probably see in the background there is some incredible bamboo here, and we're in Green School Bali, which is a stunning example of what bamboo can do to create a place where kids learn and enjoy the natural surroundings. You might be able to hear in the background the beautiful sounds of crickets and jungle creatures. It's a very beautiful and immersive place to be. And today we're celebrating World Food Day, which happens on the 16th of October every year. And we're very lucky to have three very special guests here to talk about food. They say that in life is made up of a bunch of paths and journeys that flow and cross and entwine. Well, I think we're in no better place in Green School in Bali to recognise those journeys. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to you out there whose journeys and paths have laced across this planet, your little area and a little bit further abroad. And thank you to you guys. Your journeys have gone around this island and moved. And then I'd like to say thanks to the Earth for holding this space where all our journeys and our paths have actually met at this one point for the next hour or so. And we're going to use this point and honour it by talking about food, how we grow it, how we make it, how we eat it, and what we do with the things that we don't eat afterwards, and all the things that go with that. So let's get on with the show. So our guests today come from many different paths and backgrounds, but all share a passion and a love for growing and eating food. We have Ida Rahayu, who's the head of kitchens here at Green School and has another bunch of different passions that involve food. We have Oren Hardy, co-founder of Cool Farm, which is just next door. And we have Simon Yoganota, who's the owner of Zest Ubud and New Earth Cooking School. Welcome, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Really nice to have you here. I think we might go over to you, Ida, first. Ida, you're a teacher, educator, and food aficionado. Can I say food guru? That's how we know you here. Ida, can you tell us a little bit about Green School Bali's philosophy and relationship with food and how you've had a say in that over the last period of time?
We align with our mission, which is we're like a community of learners making the world sustainable. So one of it, how we make our world sustainable. One way of it is just through our food. So that's why we have food policy here that we consume things that is local, seasonal, organic if possible, and healthy, of course. Yeah.
And how have you found doing that at Green School with the curriculum? Have you managed to integrate your passions into the curriculum?
I teach in the middle school, and we have this program called Jalan Jalan, which means in Indonesian Jalan Jalan means traveling, or we have Jalan Jalan for our experiential learning. Like we always have experiential learning, but this is more like the kids really finding out their passions, like what they're passionate about. So for the whole day, they're actually going out and doing whatever they're passionate about. And so I started the Seeds to Table program about 4 or 5 years ago. And so that's how I connect, or I bring in the food, well, I would call it now food education, into the curriculum. So that's in the middle school, but in the last few years, there has been connections also with other learning neighborhoods, like in primary or in high school. So maybe I can share this, that last year I started to manage the Green School food and beverage. So that includes the kitchen, food catering, and then also the warung. the cafeteria. And then the idea is to connect the kitchen to the learning neighborhood, to all of the learning neighborhood. So how the learning, it's not only a place that serves food, but it's also a place that everyone can learn and connect more with their food.
And if you, where we are right now is called the heart of the school, and that's a place where we all eat every day during school time.
Yeah.
So for me personally, this is a place where we all gather together. Is that part of your philosophy of eating and sharing food, that it should be something that's shared and done together?
Yes, it's part of the Green School philosophy that we are eating also as a community and nourishing ourselves, and but the way we eat also like how we nourish our Mother Earth.
We also have guests that come into the eating area. I guess in the background there. There's always a dog or two here in Bali.
One of them.
One of the many.
Hi.
So, Ida, tell us a little more about your Seeds to Table concept and what that actually means. How have you made, have you structured it at Green School to encourage children to sort of think about, you know, from the start, from the circular sort of start of the circle to the back to the circle again with food?
Yeah. So it's so I started. So Seeds to Table, basically the kids learn from growing from seeds, and then actually maintaining it, and then harvest and cook. But what do they do with the waste, for example? Well, we can compost it, and it's beyond that, because we cannot really we do not have everything in our garden. So also the idea is like how whatever we eat is good for us and good for the environment, is also good for the community. So if they cannot harvest what they plant, or we do not have it in the garden, they can source from other places, for example in cooking. But think about it, where it comes from. And how is it sold? Like, did you buy it in a package, or did you what is it? Is it so? Normally, I encourage them to like real food. So so like in Seeds to Table, they're learning from growing, and then the cooking itself. If they cannot harvest, if they cannot get it from where we have here, which is the idea is that. But if they cannot, we can forest it. But think about what you're buying, where you're buying it, who are you supporting? Are you supporting the local people, or do you get imported stuff? Or is it good for you? Is it processed? Is it real? Is it So that's the idea, and also they learned how to compost as well. So that's in the Seeds to Table, and luckily I also teach thematics and green studies in there. So that's when they go deeper into learning about soil and the microbes. And so for example, at the moment I teach grade 7 about, the idea is health and well-being. So we started from teaching microbiomes, and then understanding the microbiomes in the soil, microbiomes in our gut, how they're all connected, and of course the sustainability and minimizing waste and stuff like that.
Ida, I have personal experience in your program because my son enjoyed your classes. One thing I have noticed with kids is that there's that element of come to Green School or learn about gardening in other parts of the world, and then go back to your normal life, and those ideas sometimes can fade until you come back to school again or back to the place that you're influenced by. Has that been a challenge for you, getting kids to sort of think that what they're doing here or in somewhere else that might be where there might be passionate people around them can be transferred back to their own houses and their own lives outside of school?
Yeah. Well, I would say it's a challenge. It is not. But at least here I share what I believe in. I share what I know, hoping to inspire, and but I cannot change them. I cannot change the way they think, or so. We're trying here at the Green School. It's in everything, right? At the Green School, we're trying to bring awareness, or but it depends. It will come to every individuals, whether it's the students, the parents. So we cannot do, as us teachers, we cannot do everything ourselves. It's really, it will need to come down into the students itself, and the most important thing as well, the parents, like how they take on to this.
Yep. Actually, Simon, I might bring you in there because I know that you run cooking, if I can call it cooking immersion type situation classes and almost lifestyle type arrangements. Is that something that you find too, where you're trying to think of ways that can encourage people to do what they do with you, but then to maybe transfer that into their own lifestyles?
Thanks, good question. I would go a lot deeper than that. I've completely given up on trying to change anyone or scrape anyone on the surface. I've questioned the whole idea of teaching. And if teaching is something that we just repeat, something that someone else taught us onto another person, that's robotic. True teaching happens by transmission. When I can connect to you from my heart and show you something I found in me that's already alive inside of you. So I have no interest in converting someone to my beliefs. But when I look at someone, I see a beautiful soul that I know innately is connected to the earth and wants to be happy. And I ask the question, not from my head, but in my heart, how can I show up for you to find that in you? Even if that means I have to step out of the way. And it's not my class anymore. Yeah, and that often happens because there are much better teachers out there that now, hold space at the New Earth Cooking School, and I brought them along today. So it's not being rigid about how the teaching has to happen. It's recognizing that right now humanity is at a point that their old ways are no longer working. And as evolution dictates, the new ways will come naturally from the earth. And all we have to do as space holders for that is to align with what naturally wants to happen. And I know that sounds really broad spectrum and out there, but that sits at the basis of how I work. And then we'll narrow it down to here's the recipe or here's how to do it. But if I have to convince someone to be something and then they go home and go back to their old ways, that just tells me they're not ready. And then I can decide, do you still want to collaborate with me as a teacher-student, or is there a better place for you? Yeah.
Do you find that is that something that you get from people, is that it's almost like not unlearning people or unteaching them, but I know a lot of people have been, have learned how to cook or learned about food from their grandparents or from their parents, and then maybe in the last 10 years or a little bit, the last few years, people have stepped away a little bit from cooking, and it's a lot more of a bring the food to me type, setup. Do you find that people start to think about and connect with food that they've cooked in the past, or things that they've had from the past that make a resurgence when you bring it out of them?
Yeah, absolutely. Because quite frankly, it's not that people really wanted to stray away from food, but our system, with all the television commercials and the intensity, it has made people addicted to fast food. And it has changed them. And so it's bringing people back to themselves. And flavor is a combination of so many things. It's taste, it's aroma, it's texture, and it's also what you mentioned. It's those childhood memories and that feeling of home. And oftentimes when we offer that to someone and we show them, hey, it's actually really easy, you can do this yourself, again, people naturally get excited. I think we've made cooking very complicated. And chefs on television do a really good job at keeping it that way because they're just showing off. But essentially, for me, the real chefs are the ibus in the communities, the mothers, and the people who are the translators of the natural world, and they're taking things from nature and they find a way to make it, to make it delicious. Those are the real chefs. And it was never about rigidity. Italian grandmas were never like, you have to do it this way. It was just their necessity in Italy to put the basil and the tomato together because they grew well together. But we can steer clear from that, and we can look in Bali, and we can look at papaya and lemon basil, and they also go really well together and grow well together. So we can be flexible and evolve along. But again, it's about bringing it back to the earth and making it easy and making it fun. I always say to people at the school, if you cannot dance whilst you're cooking, what are you doing here?
Yeah, right.
No.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
We have to dance.
We have to
while
dance
we
now.
cook.
I like
Getting
it. I
too
like
serious.
it. Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I know that, Oren, I know that all of us here know the value of growing plants and growing food, and that it shouldn't be something that's a chore or something that takes time. It should be something that's a pleasure. And I know that a lot of kids come from green school, and a lot of people come from the world to go to your farm. Is that something too that you notice people when they're learning, or they're seeing people grow things, that they remember back to things they've done in the past, or I used to do this with my family, or I think I've heard about these things. Is that something that you notice too?
I mean, a little bit with the Indonesian community, we get that because they're still quite close to agriculture. But for the Western community and for the kids, I think most of it's pretty new. There's a real lack of ecological literacy and a real lack of interest in farming in general, right? And I mean, it's funny you mentioned it should be a pleasure. As someone who farms, I agree. We should get it to the point where it's pleasurable, and I think you can get it to the point where you really have a flow state with what you're doing. But it's pretty challenging to get there, and it's actually something it's diminished so much in society, right? Farmers are kind of seen or relegated to the lower echelons of society, or completely excluded, and certain, organizations and people think that maybe farming should be something done by robots, which I think is a real shame, because there is a real value in farming, and there's a real value in not just the activity of farming, but there's multiple benefits when you get more people on the land that you don't get if you mechanize that, right? And it's not just about the food. It's also about the community it generates. It's also about the health benefits. It's about the ecological benefits. There's so many different elements that make farming really, really important, and not just the act of the food growing, because we do have the capacity to do that in a we could do it in a city under a grow light, and it can all be done by software and robots, and you'll get a tomato or a basil, but you lose that relationship that like Simon's talking about, right? You don't get to have that conversation in the same way. And so Cocoa Farm's really about, re-engaging people with that conversation, being a gateway. Being a farmer can start with one plant. It doesn't have to start with a huge garden. Honestly, people come. We just had a couple show up, do a tour. Bali's pretty empty right now, but every now and again, a few people show up, and they were walking around and they really want to start a garden and a farm, but they have no experience in it, right? And like they get pretty overwhelmed, and that's a pretty general thing. People who have no experience, they're like, you think it should be relatively straightforward because we've been doing it for 10,000 years, but in reality, most people have lost the cultural knowledge that make it something that you can just do the way the Ibus in the village do it. So we're really about creating the stepping stones to get people back into like, okay, how can we reimagine this? And not just for the efficiency of the food. It is true that you can grow more food on less land if you engage more people in the process. That's a part of it, but a bigger part of it is like, if we bring more people on the land to come together to do meaningful things, like farming, you actually start to knit community back together. So true. I think that would be the crux of it, is that community is based on these things. It's based on how we grow food. Like Bali's, it's everywhere, isn't it? We're growing food. It's basically an entire island of growing food. Everywhere you go, you see food growing. And then the cooking process is a real community and family activity. And I know, Oren, that you mentioned that we say the word farming and people think, oh, that means, oh yeah, I'm not a farmer. That's something that a farmer does. But it could just be having some basil in a pot on your windowsill and putting that on the pizza that you just got from the shops, but making it into your own creation. As simple as that. Do you find people that come into your farm
are they to the type of people that they want to know more about how to do this at home? Are they trying to develop those types of skills, or what type of people are coming?
We get a lot of different people, right? Some people just want to come and they're curious, and like, you know, they might be at the basil on the windowsill stage, and then other people are like, yeah, I'm burned out in software, and like, I have a little bit of resources, I really want to start my own farm, how do I do that? So, or just like, I want my own little garden outside my house, you know, I keep trying to plant tomatoes and they die, and I'm really frustrated. And you know, it's usually, you could kind of count, you can go down a list of things, and you can usually find it within the first 5 things, whether it's sun, whether it's soil, whether it's the genetics, so which tomato are they planting, you know, is it the pest load in their location, is it the way they're actually planting. A lot of the time people don't give enough love to their plants, they just kind of expect it to grow, and certain plants you can do that. There's a lot of plants in Bali you can, you know, stick it in the ground and it will grow, but then there's a lot of plants that you need a little more intelligence and care and basically loving kindness, right? Like they're your babies, right? They're spoiled. The plants we grow to eat are spoiled rotten. They've given up their survival traits in order to help feed us more food, right? So, and there are a few rock stars that are able to feed us, like the coconut. You know, they feed us, and they're also very good at surviving. But a lot of the vegetables and things we love to eat don't fit that category. I mean, what Simon does is really great because it's helping to expand the palate, and also I think the fact that like Green School has got kids cooking the food now, you know, it's no surprise or no secret in most schools everywhere in the world, like the food is always a controversy. And you know, the catering person is often, you know, at the tip of that controversy. So by getting the kids to actually turn it into a learning experience, you know, you basically get rid of a lot of that controversy because it becomes about learning, right?
That's right.
And I think that like that's so far from the meatloaf that I was served at boarding school. That was like, I was like, is this for the dog? Like, why am I, you know, I grew up in Bali and then, you know, experienced the meatloaf. And you know, that's the level of disconnect most people are living in, right?
Yeah, that's right. The connect, I think, is the key word there. And I mean, Ida, you're working with children. What do you see when you connect them to, like, it's not just cooking, is it? I mean, it's Seeds to Table. The name itself, you know, gives you a clue of what it is. Are you finding kids, once they are connected, once they are making their own or creating their own food and then cooking it, what's the difference between that and, say, presenting food that they've had no say and no ownership in?
Oh my God, they have a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun in the kitchen, of course, and it's different. Like when they present it, I can share a story. Like one student's like, oh, I don't want to use coconut milk. Like I just don't like coconut milk, and then but she tried. Like she tried, but then after that, it's like, oh, can I use coconut milk for this recipe? Like, of course, and that kind of transformations. Like if they are just shown the food, and they don't actually connect or experience themselves or exploring themselves, that's already disconnection. Yep. And another happy story, which I'm so happy with. In my what do you call it? Green Studies class now, I actually combine Green Studies and Bahasa Indonesia, so they actually learn Indonesian language at the same time. They actually learned about soil and garden, and I love to see like almost every single student in the class, they really enjoy gardening. Like I read the reflections, like oh my God, they all love gardening.
Why is that? Do you think, Ida? What is it that, like, a lot of people would see gardening as work, and we've heard Oren say it's not easy sometimes. Things can go wrong. Why do kids like it so much?
So they started planting the seeds, so sowing the seeds, and then they get to see it's growing. I think like that's the satisfaction. It's like, oh, my seeds is growing, and they come every day. Like they would check, even like in the morning they come into class and they don't go to the table. Sometimes some of them they would just go like, oh, my seed is dying. Oh, this is growing, and it's the excitement, and that's just for me. It's the love that that is shown, like
that's right.
either from the students or from the plants in the soil. So so that's hope.
Yeah. And Simon, I'd like to talk to you more about that too, where you talked about fun in the kitchen, and we talked about kids having fun in the garden.
And kitchen.
And kitchen. Tell us about that. Like, I'm sure cooking is not always about. It's always fun. There's always things to do that require preparation, and I know that you probably get up early to get things ready for the class that gets there. Could you tell us a little bit about how people at home who are wanting to do more cooking, how would they keep it fun? You said keeping it simple. How would they sort of step into that if they're not feeling like they're confident about it, and maybe they couldn't attend one of your amazing classes or courses? How could they sort of approach that at home to make them more enthusiastic and engaged in what they're doing to start with?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a broad question, and I have so many different philosophies on agriculture, but to keep it very rational for people at home, I understand. First of all, I don't think food is ever meant to be a solo act. And so, unfortunately, if you are rushing to work and you're spending your entire day pleasing someone else, and feeding yourself has become that 20-minute slot at the end of the day, I don't blame you, it's not fun. And so the first thing I would suggest for people is to step back a lot and review their entire food situation. Why do I do what I do? What are my habits of the staples I'm buying and going to the supermarket? And then start finding inspiration to simplify things through community. Yeah, and so can we share the dinners again? Because if you always have to cook for yourself and always have to clean for yourself, which, by the way, sometimes I love cooking for myself, is a great act of self-care, but you get what I mean. And secondly, in restaurants, how we do it, we organize our fridge. When you order something in a restaurant, we don't start cooking it from scratch in that moment. We have pre-prepared all kinds of interesting puzzle pieces, and when your order comes in, they're being put together. So we have a whole bunch of spinach, because Oreo had so much spinach in his farm that all went, was ready for picking at the same time. Vegetables don't go ripe, they're ready for picking. They're still young, crunchy. So I took on 2 kilos of that spinach. I'm going to blanch that at home on Sunday. And some of that I'm going to season and crush and turn into some green pesto. I have that in my fridge. And some of that I'm already going to pre-chop. In fact, I didn't blanch it all. I fermented some of it as well. And I froze some, and I gave some to my neighbors. I've already pre-prepared that. And I do that with all my ingredients, with papaya and my pumpkin. So when I come home on Monday, I have puzzle pieces ready. And then I just need a bit of coconut milk and a bit of roasted pumpkin and a bit of the blanched spinach in a pan. It's like, oh, this is fun. And a bit of miso and a bit of lime juice. And I have the most amazing curry right there. Because I've kind of stepped back a little bit. And I took my power back. And so it's that. The second thing I suggest is to question, why do I enjoy eating what I'm eating? So if you enjoy eating that takeaway lasagna, you just go, it tastes good, go a little bit deeper. Maybe you like layers of food. Maybe you like the creaminess, the tanginess. You like the saltiness. And then you start recreating those things with ingredients that you believe are healthier for you, they're better for the earth, they're more readily available. And in that way, it's like you start hacking your own behavior. And again, you have to start inviting people over for dinner and start sharing your food, start giving it away. Make it community again. If you can find some spinach from an amazing local farmer, send them a WhatsApp message, show them what you're doing with it. That's what farmers love to see. It's about connecting the farmers and the chefs, and that's something I've always been passionate about, and coming together. And no, it's not easy. Cooking is not always easy, and farming is not always easy, but that to me is that connection that brings the fun back. And the dopamine rushes that go around your brain when you cook that amazing meal. And especially if you feed it to people and they enjoy it. There's nothing better. Yes, it's an ego stroke, but it's nothing better than happy people after they eat what you've grown or what you've cooked.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, the idea of connection. And it isn't a solo act, is it? It's, Seeds to Table is obviously about how many people are involved in the process of food. Oren, I think that what Simon just said resonated with me. Last night I was at my Bahasa Indonesia class learning the language, and 2 people that I was with who didn't seem at all like they were into gardening at all. In fact, they mainly talked about different pizza or donut places they'd been ordering their food from for the last couple of months. which I enjoyed the conversation, but I just thought, oh yeah, they're not really into food. I brought up that I liked growing on one of my cucumbers was ready on our vine, and their eyes lit up, and they said, "Oh yeah, I grow cucumbers. They're my favourite." And and the other guy had, I grow herbs. I don't grow any vegetables, just herbs, and I just use them. And the conversation was started, and all of a sudden I realised these guys who probably seemed like fast food eating junkies were actually, yes, they were into that, but they also loved that other side of growing their own food. Is that something that you see with people where, I mean, you have people who are connected and obviously very driven to want to come and visit you and be with you on your farm. Is it something that you would, like Simon mentioned, WhatsApping friends or sharing food and things like that? Is that what you encourage? Is your philosophy about sharing and making sure that you communicate your love of these types of things? Is it? I mean, it seems like a silly question, but we can do things that can be a bit solo in this day and age. And we've talked about before we came on, we talked about how technology is sometimes brings us into our houses more. Mm-hmm. How do you, what would you recommend people do to sort of connect over growing and connect over creating food?
I mean, it's pretty simple. You just have to start by growing something, right? And it's way more fun to grow something together than alone. In fact, it's really challenging to grow anything beyond a small pot. Even the pot, you have to bring the soil in, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the first step, I think, is just taking a step. It's really not that complicated. Mm-hmm. I think we often diminish it in our minds, that whatever if we've never grown food before and we're like, oh, well, I'm not good at that, so I'm not going to do anything, right? That's kind of where the conversation ends a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. So I hope that our courses and our workshops help people go, okay, I can come together in a community, even if it's just a short-term community for, let's say 10 days or 2 weeks, and I'm going to get all the basic skills I need so that when I go home, I'll be able to know where to start at least, right? And I mean, there's a real pleasure. One of the big issues with farming is actually not that we can't grow enough for everybody. There's more than enough food in the world for everybody, and we have the capacity to grow even more food. Often with farmers, the issue is actually that you grow too much food, and then you're exploited by the market because you don't know what to do with all that food, and so your price gets driven down, and then you can't support yourself or your family farming, so you stop farming, and then a multinational comes in with a machine to take over that for you. So it really it really brings into question a lot of issues around economics as well, because right now Bali's suffering economically, but because they were growing so much food for the tourists. Now the tourists are gone, and there's a lot of food available, right? So that's actually a good thing. But economically, it's hard for the farmers because they want to get a certain price, and the price of agricultural products is already so low, even before something like a pandemic hits. It's really difficult, right? So bringing food back into community and into the informal economy as something to add quality to relationships, to be a platform for elevating a conversation, getting beyond the junk food, getting beyond the iPhone, getting beyond the just sitting in the restaurant or the warung, and really just, let's actually do an activity that we know is good. We can solve climate change by changing how we do agriculture. It's it's really it's not that complicated. It's just we're lacking the political will and the social will to get it done. And most people just don't want to see themselves as somebody who farms.
Mm-hmm. And are they the types of people that you get coming to your farm? Who are they? Tell us about what types of people you get there.
It's really hard to typify because we get so many different people. One course we can have 20 nationalities. They're all the type of people who are looking for solutions. They're all the type of people who know and believe and feel in their bones that something about what we're doing right now just is no longer working, and they're right. And so they're the type of people who want to take a positive approach to some pretty negative situations. and to do that, it takes a lot of strength and courage, and it takes a community, and it takes support, and it takes friendships. It's not something you're going to do alone.
Yeah, right. I guess on that too, Simon, I'd love to know what types of people come along to your spaces that you create. Are they looking for the same sorts of things? Are they looking for solutions?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. You're talking about the restaurant or the school?
Let's talk about let's go to the school first, and then we'll go to the restaurant. Tell us a little bit about the school, if you wouldn't mind.
I can't be any less spiritual about this. I really feel that the school serves a function of bringing people closer to themselves and to the earth. And the school is not something that I created in my mind. It's something that almost came through us. And it was ironic. It was an old chicken farm that was very degenerative, very hard on the farmer, like a franchise system. And we've converted that into hopefully a place to empower people, empower farmers, empower people. And so the types of people that come to our school, they often don't even know why they're here. and sometimes we're sitting in the morning and we make it a point to always do a meditation. And that's just a matter of sitting together in a circle and having a period of silence. And assuring this person that all parts of them are welcome here. You don't have to be a certain way to be at this school. And that allows people to relax and not be so hard on themselves. And often there's tears and there are emotional processes as they're going through there. And they're finding something deeper within them. And those are the people coming to our school. They're already looking for something and they don't know quite what. They say, oh yeah, I like food. I don't know if I want to be cooking all the time. There's something, yeah? And so I really trust in that natural evolution. The right people come to the school. They find themselves, but it's like planting seeds in their hearts. What excites me the most is they go back into the world. And they're going to live from that new place of connection to the self and the things they're going to create, no matter what it is. I can't comprehend what it's going to mean for the world, but I know it's good because it comes from their place. So soil and soul are two words that are very closely related. And farmers know and teachers know if you nourish people's soil or soul, or you nourish the earth's soils, whatever grows from there will be stronger and better. So I'm not too concerned with who they are again and what I'm going to teach them. I want to know what lives inside of them.
That's really interesting. Do you ever have any, pardon the pun, hard nuts to crack? Are there people that come along that might take a while to get into that?
Yeah, well, it's that. And sometimes people aren't ready to look at themselves. They get angry. They say, I was just here to learn vegan cheese. I'm like, that's fine. But we're starting to realize that, it's not just about you and your vegan cheese. We are a community. We're emanating an energy. We're doing this together. And if you're not willing somehow to take a deeper look at the reason why you were disconnected, then that vegan cheese recipe is not going to change your life. And that's ultimately what we're facilitating, what we're holding space for. So yeah, we've had people walk away from the school because of that. But most people, I say 99%, they're very happy. Don't always get what they thought they were going to get, but what they get in the end is what they're grateful for. So we keep going. And again, it's a dance. So it's the heart, it's that sort of space, and the structure is also very important. In the spiritual realms, that's often left out. And we all just flow. No. Structure is very important. Recipes, and we get together at this time, and that's something we continue to learn, because a lot of us have gone scared of structure because it always overruled us. But I feel the heart comes first and the structure follows, as a protection to make sure we all get to learn what we came here to learn.
Yeah, nice. It's interesting about the structure, because I know that, people who grow food and people who teach and people who cook always have to stay with the structure. There's the weather patterns and the timings of things that ultimately important with farming. Ida, with your structure, and it's a similar question to what I asked Simon, do you have kids who are not receptive? You said that kids love to garden and they love to cook. What about those ones who don't? What about those ones who, it seems like no matter what you do, no matter how fun you make it, no matter how many taste tests you do of delicious things that they seem to like, there's those kids who find it difficult to let themselves go, or they're held back by something. I know there'd be people out there, particularly parents, who'd like to know, how can you make kids who like white and brown things enjoy things that are all different colours? How can you, the kids who are tough, how do you deal with those types of kids in your classes?
I cannot do anything. I cannot change them. So the idea. So a lot of time also in the cooking classes. well, seeds to table is like growing and cooking as well. So in the cooking classes, a lot of time is I give them opportunity. Like I don't tell them what to cook. Oh, let's make this, let's make that. I just share that. Okay, we're going to make something that's good for you, good for the soil. Good for the environment, good for the earth, also good for our community. So that's it. That's what I want to share. But I give them the opportunity to like explore, do make anything you want, because you're the one who's going to eat it. And so it's just so I don't need to change anything. I just share the idea why we need to nourish ourselves, why we need to nourish our soil, and then it's them.
Goes to them. Do they have a lot of input in what you do? Like, how would a day in Seeds to Table look, or how would a session look? Are you sort of asking them what they're interested in, or is it more about guiding them towards things that you'd like them to go towards, type thing?
Normally, during the cooking classes, like not the gardening is like they learn about the soil, like how to put on mulch, and like how to keep our soil healthy. But in the cooking, normally, which they love, now I turn it into more like a mini master chef, like a junior master chef, and then they love it. And they might not like the ideas, like okay, today the ideas of plant-based or vegetarian, but they really. It might not be what they want, but they're already excited about doing the cooking. But I know it's not the best during the competition, but they're having fun. And
I think a lot of kids respond to that, though, don't they? As long as it's done in a friendly way and it's not something that's too hardcore. Yeah, that sounds like something that.
Well, at the end, it comes down to like, okay, there's no winner. So everyone is a winner, of course. But they're having fun. They explore. Even though they took on the plant-based cooking, or one time I did what do you call it? A mystery box, and they're doing really great. You know what? Like sometimes I don't know what they created. I don't know what they're planning to do, and then they just created amazing things, and that's what makes me happy. That's for me like satisfaction when the kids are just like creating something amazing and that they're happy and I'm happy.
Yeah, I remember my son came home and said, "Oh, we made something out of kale and ginger and coconut milk," and I was like, "Okay, sounds delicious." But absolutely all over it, loved doing it, and did it back at home as well. So which is
great.
Yeah, really cool.
So we had this over there actually. I don't know, they cannot see it. This breadfruit. Actually, one of the ingredients with breadfruit is now fruiting, and that's like nobody knows what it like. Kids had no idea. They never ate it before, and it's like okay. I just told them, this is just like potato. Like you like potato, yeah. You can make anything out of this. You can make chips. You can make anything. You like whatever you make with potato. Try this, and the result was amazing. It was just that like we got to again like back to your question. How can I change them? So like let them have fun. And then that's when they change.
Let it happen. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So I cannot change them. They will change. Like, but I facilitate like get them to have fun, explore themselves, get them connected to all of that, and they will eventually like the same. Like it will happen. It will happen.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah.
Simon, we just touched on the connection between the growers and the makers of food, if you will. And Oren, I'd like to hear about your views on this too. How much of a connection is there? This is coming from someone who doesn't know a lot about the industry. How much of a connection is there between the people who are growing the food and the people who are cooking it and making it? Like your average restaurant around the world, or what you do, have you got a close relationship with people around you who are making the food?
Who are cooking the food or
who are growing the food?
Who are growing the food. Yeah, absolutely. And we're constantly improving that. In fact, this weekend is has to boot Bali Live. All the proceeds go to a Balinese man who's supporting an initiative to connect. You know the name Pasar
Raya.
Yeah. So it's an initiative to bring the farmers directly in touch with the Balinese people, because I find often the middleman is the one that gets in the way and keeps the prices high. And oftentimes I really resonated with the way farmers are being treated. I think one thing we have to realize is more broad spectrum, and then you can answer more sort of precisely the situation here in Bali with farmers. But I think what we got to realize is that we shifted our farmers from growing food, they're now growing commodities. Yeah, and World War II was this point where that really shifted, where the Green Revolution was called, the industrialization of our farming. Forced farmers to no longer look at the earth as something living and breathing that we are in relation with, but it's something you completely dominate with machinery and with chemicals. And food factories were just an extension of that, where we then take that material, whether it's a zillion tons of wheat or soy, you can turn that one monocrop into a million different products, like your bang bangs and your pot noodles and all of these weird creations that are no longer food, which we then promote on television to the children. Yeah, and that's why I love hearing from Ida, because I'm going a little bit all over the place now, but it's true that children might love things that are just golden brown because they associate that with fun. But the moment we bring fun back to carrots and ginger, I've seen children change their palate in half hour, and they're eating all of these crazy salads and all of these things, and their mothers are like, they'll never eat that at home. Because I shared a few cooking classes here, so that's where my hope is. We can easily reverse that by bringing fun into it. But I think we all know, to answer your question, that the connection between the farmer and the consumer in the restaurants is pretty poor, and we are constantly improving that.
Yeah, like say you're going to, I mean, I know that you're a chef. If you're planning for next week's menu or the things you need for the menu, tell us about a day in the life. Where does the food come from? How do you organise that with whoever's growing it or providing it to you? And what are the easy things to do that would maybe not be the best for the planet? And what are the harder things to do that are maybe better for sustainability?
Well, look, when I design a restaurant menu, I didn't design it for me to be there every day. And so creative talent is hard to find. And so what a restaurant requires for me is to structure a menu. But I can choose to use ingredients that are better for the earth, that are readily available year-round. And so in Bali, that often meant to just replace potatoes with cassava or with taro root, to choose heritage rice over the more sort of hybrid varieties, to choose the better products and then allow my creativity to create a menu with that. So oftentimes people open a restaurant, they don't think that way. They think like, what's popular? They think, what do the customers want? Next door they sell Caesar salad, so we put it on the menu. But I don't go that way. I said, no, I'm dictating what we're going to eat because I care about the earth. I'm going to choose the ingredients that are good for the earth. I'm going to make them delicious, and you're going to have to eat them. So with zest, I never put on a dish that I saw anywhere else. Everything was my own wacky creations. And people loved it. Yeah, I say loved it. Now I had to change a little bit because our audience become more people who come every day. So I brought it a little bit back more to that homely feeling. I put burgers on and pizzas, but I still make those using as many, I say, wholesome ingredients as possible, so we can recreate that homely burger experience that we all love, a little saucy and messy, but still using ingredients that are good for the earth and good for us. So this is where I find cooking is such a beautiful tool. We can really use our creativity to change the way our landscape looks. I grew up on cheese sandwiches, and guess what Holland looks like? It's just all flat, and it's cows and wheat fields and pig farms, and the entire landscape looks like that cheese sandwich. And what excites me is that we could change the landscape by changing the way we eat. And again, the palate is just something that we're used to, and palates can change, and the body will change. And I truly enjoy healthy food now. I don't associate it with, I have to eat broccoli because I guess it's good for me. I eat broccoli because I think it's absolutely delicious, provided it's cooked well, seasoned well, and I'm in a good place, I'm calm in my mind, and I'm eating this and I'm enjoying this. So.
Well, Bali's that's really interesting. You talk about the landscape and what people want to eat will influence the land around them. And Bali's a perfect example of where people love rice, and so you see rice everywhere. Oren, I'd love to know on that sort of landscape setup. It's going back a little bit, but your origin story. I mean, we're sitting in a place which your family, created from what I've been talking to people about as a place that was very different to what it looks like now. Can you tell us a little bit about Cool Cool Farm? And for those people watching at home, it's literally 200 meters from where we're sitting, something like that?
Yeah, it's about 2 or 3 minute walk. Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah, so the Kukul farm was basically born out of my desire to create a space for people to talk about agriculture, and not just about agriculture for food, but the whole process of interacting with the landscape to get your basic needs, right? So we do permaculture design courses, we've done herbal medicine courses, we've done natural dye courses, we've done gardening courses, we've done agroforestry courses. We do a lot of different things, and the Kukul itself is it's a symbol in the Balinese village, right? At the center of every Balinese village, you have a Kukul, and you bang the Kukul to bring the community together for meetings, for ceremonies, and for emergencies, right? And I just felt like it was a really great symbol because I think we're in a time right now that I'm banging the Kukul. We all need to bang our own proverbial Kukul because we really need to come together to solve a lot of problems. It's imperative. I just had a kid, and it's even more imperative. There's a lot of science that's saying that by the time he's my age, the planet's going to look like a very different place, and it really that really needs to activate us to take some positive steps. And the first step is with education and with learning. And not just with like sitting around and talking about it, like what we're doing, which is great, but actually education that takes you into the garden, takes you into the kitchen, takes the chef into the garden, takes the farmer into the kitchen, takes the accountant, onto the farm as well, takes the customer onto the farm. Really need to move away from this situation we've got ourselves in, where everything's been kind of segregated, I guess in the name of efficiency, when really it needs to be integrated, basically in the name of our humanity, right? Because that's what's at stake.
Oren, that's a really good segue into what I want to talk about to finish up, and that's where we're going forward, and what the future holds for you guys, and also for the people out there. And I kind of maybe want to touch a little bit on mushrooms and fungi, and maybe even a bit of composting, because I think that's something that's a lot of people are very interested in at the moment. So I might ask you all a little bit about your views on that area. Ida, I know the kids are very involved in growing mushrooms. I think there must be something about mushrooms that kids find fascinating, whether it's because they're weird or they're new, or they're not new, but they're being thought of in different ways nowadays. Have mushrooms been something that you've been using at school or growing at school?
Growing, I think we started. It's not with me. Like I'm not. I don't know much about like growing mushroom and stuff. But yes, we like here at the kitchen we served a lot of mushrooms. But we do not grow ourselves. Actually, students started. I think last year they started. One of the teachers actually creating this space, which hopefully we get to use soon. It's the kids loved it. It's I don't know. I think they're always fascinated about like science behind everything. Like even we showed a movie Kiss the Ground. If you haven't watched it, highly recommended. Even just watching the understanding about like the connection, like all the microbiomes, all the microorganisms in the soil, and they're fascinated. So, which is a good thing, like it's positive. And so the kids are really what do you call it, excited and
fully engaged.
Like fully engaged when it comes to science and understanding about all that. All that makes sense. And like your questions about mushroom that we use here, I found out that actually mushrooms that they use like in the farm, like it's the same thing with any other food, like vegetables where they spray with pesticides. I thought mushrooms just grow from logs, right? And turned out that they have pests, which is a lot of time ants, turned out they spray as well. I thought, like, oh, mushroom is great. They still spray something. They still spray chemicals in it. So that's something that's why we got to start also not just, vegetables, mushrooms could be also part of the diet. And actually, another thing is that the kids also learned is insects.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and not really eating it. They were still like this, but some of them they really took on the challenge, but they're cooking it. They learned how to grow insects, but also raise or farms. I don't know. I mean, just they learned about insects, and then they actually it was in my class, but they were having fun in the kitchen, actually making either tacos or nasi goreng with crickets in it or mealworms. So it's another sustainable source of food.
Yeah, fascinating. Maybe the future of food might have been a better line my question was following, and the future of food perhaps is going along the lines of insects and foods that we're maybe not as familiar with. Simon, where do you see food going, or what do you see as some? I know we've talked about the philosophy behind it. Where do you see as the future of how we're going to have to look at our food going forward?
Well, the future in general, I see two timelines. Ultimately, they will merge into one. There are people who are now awakening to the fact that we are an ecosystem. And as a human race, we are only a part of this ecosystem. And for a little while, we should be trying to live outside of the ecosystem and somehow create a human world. And that human world is now crumbling. And very humbly so. We can recognize that. And we can choose to come back to the deeper understanding that we are part of an ecosystem. When we do, that ecosystem starts offering us solutions. And all of our seeming problems are just invitations to get to a solution. And so my brain is overwhelmed from all the technology. I can use lion's mane mushroom to restore my nerves. And when Chernobyl happened, mushrooms came around to clean up the nuclear waste. And I have problems in my garden. They're not problems. They're pests. They're not pests. They're not weeds. They're plants and insects that are showing us that are actively trying to rebalance our system. So stop spraying them and start listening to them. And so those humans who start to recognize that and want to work with nature, which is their own innate nature, they're going to create beautiful communities within this world where they're going to thrive. Not easily, but they're going to thrive. And I can see the rest of the world is going to sort of hang on to their superior humanness, and they will just sort of control and vaccinate and try to sort of sterilize everything. They'll do that for a little while, but they'll realize, oh, we need materials to make our computers. Where do we get that from? We can't actually make a tree. We are actually part of nature, and that's where humility will come in. So we might see the suffering increase greatly. We might see some crazy jumps in the food industry where people will try to hold on to the old ways. But ultimately, I will see that this is about an inner awakening and people to realize they're part of an ecosystem. And when they do, they will come up with some really incredible solutions, because that's why I still believe in humans. They will come up with incredible solutions. And if it means they're going to eat insects for a little while for their protein, good luck. But it's going to be an interesting time ahead. But I will continue to come back to the earth. And in fact, I'm okay with death. Because I see in every ecosystem endings and sickness. They are part of the ecosystem again. And in the end, we're all going to turn into compost. And this beautiful meat suit that I'm wearing, where my spirit is navigating the earth, is going to be a great nitrogen fix for the next jackfruit tree and the next generation to feast on. So happy days.
It's nice to look at it. Oren, same with you. I guess I'd like to know where you see the future going. Are you with Simon there that humans will find a way, and do you feel that positivity? Your child has entered this world. Do you feel like there's a positive? It's easy to feel positive here because we have a lot of positive things going on. But do you feel that when you go to other places outside of where you live and the island?
I mean, I think it's important to stay positive even if it's not looking so good. I think we all need to do that, because that's the first step in creating a better future is believing in a better future and then acting like it. If you look at the data and you decide that you're just going to be a pessimist and not really the science is saying we're all going to die, so we're all going to die. You're discounting the power of the human spirit and the power of human innovation. And I also want to stress the solutions are here. We don't need to invent the solutions. We need to implement the solutions. There's solutions in mushrooms. There's solutions in insects. There's solutions in vegetables. There's solutions in aquaculture. There's solutions in cows. Cows might end up saving the planet. All we need to do is change how we treat them. And they win and we win. And we probably won't eat as many cows, but that's going to be good for us. So I think it's just really important that we find, like Simon said, the humility to take one step at a time and start going in the right direction rather than just living in paralysis by analysis, because we realize we have to get over 8 mountains and we're like, well, I'm just never going to take the first step because I'm never going to get there. And I think you're discounting the power of humanity by doing that. So I would just say, start somewhere, wherever you're at in your life, and have the humility to let go of whatever beliefs are inhibiting you from starting, because we need everybody to do something on every level of society.
Thanks, Oren. It's a beautiful place to finish up. I think that we're all going to try and do something together. And thank you so much, Ida, Simon, and Oren. It's been a fascinating conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. It's really managed to make me think very differently about how things work between you guys and interspersed between you. And I hope people at home have really enjoyed the chat here. There were a few things mentioned during the webinar today of some movies to watch and things like that. We'll put those on if we can as some reminders. But I don't know what time it is where you are, but it's getting close to a sort of late brunch, early lunch here in Bali, and all this talk of food's making me a little hungry. So we're going to say goodbye. Thanks again, guys. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Andy.
And
Thank you.
Goodbye from Green School Bali.
Bye.